Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Yesterday, Camille Cosby, wife of comedian Bill Cosby for over 53 years, decided to make a statement about the conviction of her husband for sexual assault in a second sexual assault trial that happened recently in Philadelphia. And Camille Cosby stated that she believes that the conviction of her husband was mob justice. And I agree with her that this conviction was as a result of mob justice because there was no application of the letter of the law or the spirit of the law as related to the United States Constitution. What I saw with this Bill Cosby sexual assault trial was a zealous prosecutor, Kevin Steele, deciding he wanted to go and try to convict a celebrity in order to elevate his name. And when he did that, he did it at the expense of our United States Constitution and the rights of men all across this country. And when I take a look at this whole Bill Cosby sexual assault trial, I see where this prosecutor violated the laws of this United States. And one of the laws he violated in trying to go get this conviction was the Sixth Amendment of these United States. Now, under the Sixth Amendment, American citizens who are brought to trial are supposed to be able to get due process under the law. And I saw no due process under the law as related to the letter or the spirit of our United States Constitution in that Bill Cosby sexual assault trial. No, what I saw in that sexual assault trial was an overzealous prosecutor and a judge manipulating the law in order to get the conviction that they wanted. And this was something many Americans fought against because when the British were doing it to American citizens back in the 1700s, we had an issue with it because it was called double indemnity. And oftentimes with the British, they would often try someone multiple times in order to get the conviction that they wanted. And when I take a look at this case, it is the exact same thing. We have a prosecutor trying a case for a second time and then manipulating the facts in order to get the conviction that he wanted. And that's a complete compromise of due process under the law because under due process under the law, we're supposed to get a conviction based on an objective presentation of the evidence. And when I take a look at this prosecutor, he never gave us an objective presentation of the evidence because when this prosecutor ran for the position of district attorney, one of the things he said in his campaign was that he was running that campaign in order to convict Bill Cosby. So that shows me that this prosecutor clearly had a bias against Bill Cosby from day one, and Bill Cosby was not going to be able to get a fair trial as long as this district attorney was in charge of the district attorney's office. So he was not going to be able to get a fair trial because the district attorney was going to go out here and try to manipulate the evidence and the facts of the case to get the evidence, to get the conviction he wanted, and he was manipulating things to go his way. So when I look at this district attorney, this is an individual who should have recused himself from this case, and he should have recused himself because he clearly showed bias against Bill Cosby. Now, when it comes down to this trial, there were also other errors in this case that are glaring to me. And one of the other glaring errors was the fact that this trial was allowed to go on in that county. Now, it's clear to me from the juror pool that the juror pool was biased. Excuse me. And there should have been a change of venue in this case because Bill Cosby was not allowed a chance to get a fair trial in that area because most of the people were biased. And it was clear to me from the jump, with this prosecutor being biased and the jury pool being biased, there should have been a change of venue. Moreover, we had a judge who should have recused himself because he allowed his personal biases relating to women to cloud his judgment. And when I look at this judge who says he has a wife who is one of these women who works with battered women or some sort of situation, it's clear to me he had a bias as well. So that also should have been a case to recuse himself from this case. And another thing as related to this case that really was a glaring legal error related to Andrea Constant, the victim. Now, Andrea Constant, the alleged victim in this case, said that she signed a agreement with Bill Cosby and an out-of-court settlement where she said she would not pursue criminal charges against Bill Cosby in this matter. And when she decided to go out here and pursue those criminal charges, what she did was she violated that agreement. So when I take a look at that whole part of the case, that really clearly is a case of double indemnity, and them using that deposition shows me that there was double indemnity here, and that they were going to try to use Bill Cosby's own words to convict him. So that's another reason that this whole case is mob justice, because there was no application of the law to these proceedings. This whole proceeding was all about Kevin Steele's zealous agenda to destroy a black celebrity and then try to run for a further political office in the future. And when I take a look at this Kevin Steele, I clearly see a very unethical individual and someone who is just plain reprehensible in my eyes. Because for this man to step all over our United States Constitution and the laws of this land, it shows me that this man is not a patriot, and that this man really isn't concerned with the laws of this land the way a good prosecutor would be concerned about the laws of this land and protecting the laws of this land. No, for Kevin Steele, this was all about him being this superstar, and that's very dangerous when you think about it. And what's even more scary to me is that when I take a look at this Kevin Steele and the political party he's affiliated with, it sends chills down my spine, because Kevin Steele, a Democrat, decided to go after Bill Cosby, and when we take a look at his racist actions, they harken us back to the old days of the Democratic Party, which was affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, because this was a lynching right in front of us, but many people were so caught up in their emotions about Bill Cosby's wealth to not see what this Democrat was doing to this man in Philadelphia, the so-called city of brotherly love. Because in this Democratic stronghold, the city of brotherly love, we had a Democratic prosecutor deciding he was going to trample over our United States Constitution in a desperate attempt to prosecute a black man who he clearly had a bias against. And that takes us all the way back to the old days of the Democratic Party, which was the foundation for the Ku Klux Klan and many white supremacists. And it shows us that nothing has really changed as related to the Democratic Party. And this is something black people really need to think about before they vote for another Democrat, because Kevin Steele, the Democratic prosecutor, zealously went after Bill Cosby on a series of weak charges and trampled all over our Constitution and trampled all over the rights of American men and black men in this case. And that shows us really the true colors of this so-called Democratic Party, the liberal stronghold. And when I look at this case and I listen to what Camille Cosby has said regarding this case, again, I can agree with her, because she made a statement saying that if they can do this to Mr. Cosby, they can do this to anyone. And that's the scary thing that many racists out here aren't really thinking about related to this case. Because if a district attorney like Kevin Steele can come in here with a case based on the emotions of women and manipulate the laws of this land and then bring in witnesses with hearsay against a celebrity like Bill Cosby, then what could they do to the average man on the street? Because when you take a look at the legal precedent established by this case, the legal precedent established by this case literally obliterates the rights of men in America. And what happened in the aftermath of this case is the same thing that happened with Dred Scott back in the 1800s and Plessy versus Ferguson, in that this case establishes a legal precedent which lays the foundation for gynocentric Jim Crow. And under gynocentric Jim Crow, that means any woman can come into a court with an accusation with no evidence of any sort of substantiated facts of an incident happening to her, and a prosecutor like Kevin Steele, the Democrat, will go out of their way to bring charges against that individual, have that person arrested, bring them to trial based on evidence filled with hearsay and not facts, and have that individual convicted. And that's a very scary place for Americans to be, and that's the place that District Attorney Kevin Steele has brought America to. Instead of us having a court system based on laws, based on facts and logic, your District Attorney Kevin Steele has turned American courts into a kangaroo court where women, based on their emotions, can have an individual prosecuted and convicted of a crime that probably did not happen, or violate laws that were clear to protect the rights of individuals. And that's why I say there needs to be an effort by people in the state of Pennsylvania to recall Kevin Steele, because this man's ethics literally are absolutely disgusting. And the unethical lengths he went to try to convict Bill Cosby are something most Americans really need to think about, because if this man could trample over our United States Constitution in a zealous attempt to get a conviction against Bill Cosby, trying him not once but twice on a weak case, what type of compromises would this man make to go after someone else he had issues with? Because that kangaroo court he orchestrated was all about his feelings and not about the facts of the case, because other district attorneys over the last 15 years saw how weak this case was and didn't want to go after the case because they knew that the evidence was weak. But this individual, Kevin Steele, he decided to manipulate the facts and decided to manipulate evidence by bringing in hearsay witnesses, another violation of our United States Constitution, because in order for a witness to testify in a trial, they have to be able to have witnessed the incident and been able to chronicle what happened, not based on a rumor. So this individual, Kevin Steele, has literally stepped all over our Constitution and stepped all over the rights of American citizens. But many Americans, again, are too caught up in race to see how this man has compromised our Constitution and compromised American men's rights in his attempt to go after Bill Cosby. And again, this is a Democrat doing this, one of the people of the political party who say that Trump is a racist, but here we have them participating in behavior that is far more reprehensible than any of the rhetoric that Donald Trump has stated in many of his rallies. Because when I listen to Donald Trump, he does make a lot of statements that are considered offensive, but I don't see his administration going to lengths to violate people's civil rights in the way that Kevin Steele, a Democrat, violated people's civil rights. And any smart Republican out there, they would take Kevin Steele and use him as a poster boy for why not to vote for a Democrat, because this guy literally is the Democrats' new Willie Horton. When I take a look at how this man literally used mob justice in an attempt to get a verdict that he wanted, it showed me how little ethics he has as a lawyer and a prosecutor, and how reprehensible he is as a person. Because for him to go to these unethical lengths to get this conviction against Bill Cosby and orchestrate mob justice, it shows me how unjust he is as a prosecutor, and how black people and people all throughout America really need to rally against this kind of individual, because if they're willing to trample over Bill Cosby's rights, they will be willing to trample over other men's rights and women's rights in this country. And that's something that we really don't need prosecutors doing in this country, where people are supposed to be guaranteed freedom of speech, freedom of expression, due process under the law, and the right to a speedy trial. That's what people were supposed to be guaranteed in this country. But when I take a look at the zealous and malicious prosecution of Bill Cosby and the verdict that was handed down, we see how Americans' Constitution has been compromised by an overzealous Democrat, and a Democrat who put his feelings about Bill Cosby above the laws of this land. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.